And the Diamondbacks, as we talked about yesterday, they didn't give him a soft landing. I mean, it's really tough for a guy who made 5 big league starts earlier in the season and really struggled. You bring him back up and you're giving him the Tampa Bay Rays, right? The Diamondbacks could have gone to Tommy Henry in this game if they wanted to. We know they decided not to go that direction because the Rays have been really, really good against lefties. So from a matchup standpoint, that made sense. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. Pfaadt has not really had, I guess he faced the Pirates once. They're a bit of a lighter hitting team, but a lot of his starts this year have come against really strong offenses, right? He made his big league debut against the Rangers, and then he got the Tampa Bay Rays in this game. So it was a tough position to put him in. Again, I thought the stuff looked pretty good at times. It was just a matter of location. And we have some screenshots that I want to look at to kind of help illustrate this. We'll look at the sweeper first. So these are all of the sweepers that Brandon Pfaadt threw in this game. This is from the perspective of the catcher. And you'll notice a couple of things here. Number one, the only pitches below the strike zone that you see here were completely uncompetitive, right? There's 2 in the lower right-hand corner. Those pitches are way too far away from the strike zone for a hitter to actually think about swinging.
But below the strike zone is kind of where the sweeper should end up landing.
That's where
just
it
not
probably
this far outside, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's where it probably should be, but not that far down. He had 0 sweepers that were in that kind of gray area, that shadow zone where a hitter would actually be likely to swing. And you also see there's a few of them here that are middle. Some of those turned into big hits. One of those is the home run to Luke Raley. I believe there was at least one other hit out of those pitches that you see in the middle. And there were a couple there on the corner. But yeah, the real takeaway here is just that he just wasn't able to drive the sweeper down in the strike zone. If we flip to the changeup, it's kind of a similar story. Brandon Pfaadt, not as many changeups. It's not as big of a pitch for him, but it is really important facing left-handed hitters. And you can see here, it's kind of the same story. He's not driving the changeup down below the strike zone. There's a few that I think are good in the lower left-hand corner of the zone. Those are good pitches, but there's 2 that are way off the outside corner to a lefty that you see here. Those pitches are just completely uncompetitive. You see one on the outside corner that's more in the middle part of the zone. That pitch is left way too far up in the zone. So if you just kind of take a look more closely at especially these secondary pitches, you can see that Brandon Pfaadt just wasn't able to get these pitches where he needed to.
What about his fastball? How was his fastball working
His
today?
fastball, we do have that one too. He likes to throw his fastball up, which you can obviously see here. There's only one pitch that's really in the bottom half of the zone, so he was able to accomplish that. There were some pretty good ones, and a lot of the whiffs he was getting early in this game were high 4-seamers that were very well placed. But you can also see there's some here that catch a little bit too much of the strike zone, and Brandon Pfaadt is the type of guy where, although I think his stuff is good, it's not Spencer Strider stuff,
Correct.
right? It's not ace caliber stuff. He needs to be able to put his pitches where he wants to, and he's just making way too many mistakes right now.
He also featured a new sinker in
He
this
did.
game.
Yes.
Why? Why in this game?
I don't know what the impetus for this was. I didn't notice this until right before first pitch, but in his last 2 starts, Brandon Pfaadt down in Reno was throwing a sinker, which I believe is a pitch that he messed around with years ago. I'm not aware if he's really used the pitch professionally at all. He hadn't used it at all, at least once he got to the AAA level and beyond. We haven't seen him throw any sinkers up until these past 2 starts in Reno. And I actually think it's kind of a good idea. Pfaadt has a decent 4-seam fastball. You did see him get some swing and misses in this game, but I'm not sure it's going to play at this level quite like it does in AAA. And he's got kind of a side sort of arm slot a little bit. And I think the idea of a sinker makes sense for him. I think it's a pitch that might work pretty well for him just to kind of keep hitters off balance. We saw a few of them in this game. I don't know if it really made a huge difference at the end of the day, but it's interesting that they're trying that.
Here's my concern with that. One thing that Torey Lovullo brought up the other day about Brandon Pfaadt was his pitch selection and the fact that, as Torey put it, he was just kind of digging into his bag of tools and pulling something out. Almost made it sound like random, like with no actual game plan as to how these pitches were going to connect.
Yeah, like sequence.
Yeah, sequences and change a batter's eye level and result in swings and misses, essentially. So the fact that he is kind of adding into his arsenal a new pitch this close and trying to utilize it. I mean, even if it didn't end up being something that was hugely detrimental or caused him to have a lack of success, it still feels like that's just another thing kind of rattling around in his mind while he's trying to stay focused and pitch. And again, it didn't feel like he had a very good game plan today, even though, like Jesse said, his stuff was landing. He did have some good stuff at times.
I think it was just like an execution problem for me. I don't know if the game plan was, I mean, we don't really know exactly what the game plan was because I don't think he really executed it very well. No. But yeah, I mean, you just saw time and time again, Gabby would set up in a certain location and Pfaadt just wasn't able to. You're never going to hit the glove 100% of the time. We're not asking perfection here. If we were to look at those charts for like a Zach Gallen start, it's not like they all would be in an ideal location, but he's just making too many mistakes and the shape of his pitches isn't good enough in order to be able to be effective against major league hitters in those spots.